Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Boarding School with Brandy, and I'm Brandy. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to play Furnace. This is a quick, easy engine building game by Ivan Lashin for 2 to 4 players. You become a capitalist trying to accumulate more wealth than your fellow players. You know, the American way. You have 4 rounds to buy and operate companies to try to become the wealthiest. Before we get into setting up or actually playing the game, I want to discuss some of the cards that come with the game. You get these double-sided cards right here. They are called company cards. This side is the basic side. You can tell it's the basic side because it has this compensation effect that is resolved during the auction phase. It also has these 2 effects, one of which is colored in and one of which is grayed out. These are effects that you get to activate during production. However, on the basic side of the card, you only have the top one available, and that's why it's in color. This one is only available to you once you upgrade the card, and this is the upgraded side of the card. You can tell because both sides are colored in. You might also notice that the compensation effect is no longer there. That's because, like I said, you only get that when you don't win this card during the auction phase, and it doesn't apply again after that, and it doesn't apply to you if you actually won the card. The next set of cards I want to talk about are these cards right here. They have a building on the back. These are your startup cards. Each player is dealt a random startup card during setup, and they determine your starting resources, and they also give you these production effects that are available to you starting in the first round during the production phase. The next set of cards that you're probably going to be interested in are these ones with the dude on the back. These are your capitalist cards. Each capitalist card will redefine the rules for you in some small way that will end up making a huge impact on your strategy. For example, this capitalist here gives you an additional disc that you're allowed to place during bidding. That means you get to bid on 5 cards out of the 6 that are placed out during the auction phase. I think we're ready to start setting up. It's a super quick and easy setup. First thing you want to do is take your stack of company cards and shuffle them. You'll take your shuffled deck and place them upgraded side up onto this round tracker. And you'll set the round tracker marker at 1. You move it like this and for the rounds. I just think that's pretty cute. You randomly determine a start player, and that person gets this start player marker. Set all of the resources nearby. You have startup tokens, coins, coal, iron, and oil. Each player gets a random startup card. And since we're playing with capitalists, each player is going to get a random capitalist. And then each player chooses whatever color they want. We'll go ahead and give this player yellow. You also get the matching yellow token to remind you of what color you are. I'll be red. It's my favorite color to be. And since we're setting up for a 2-player game, we also need to set aside an extra set of discs to act as our AI character. We'll give them the top hat. And in a 2-player game, you also need this tan disc. And we'll also set aside our multiplier tokens in case we want to run out of resources somehow. Once everybody has their cards in front of them, they go ahead and grab the starting resources on their startup card. I'm going to get 1 coal and 1 iron. Yellow is going to get an upgrade token. My capitalist card gives me the benefit of once per production phase, I can spend 2 coal to resolve one of my company cards again. As I mentioned earlier, the game is played over 4 rounds. Each round is broken into 2 phases. Phase 1 is the auction phase. Phase 2 is production phase. During the auction phase, players bid on companies. You don't actually bid using money, you bid using these discs that you got during setup. 4 is the highest and 1 is the lowest. The highest numbered token on a card will win that card, and then the people who don't win the card will be compensated. The first player would take the deck off of the round tracker. They cut the deck however they want, and then lay out 6 cards with the basic side up so that everybody can see them. And then in play order, players bid by placing whichever disc they choose onto whichever card they choose. There are 2 placement rules that apply throughout the entire game, including to the AI character. The first one is that you can't have the same colored bid on a card more than once, meaning each player can only bid on a card 1 time. There's a capitalist that changes this rule, but for the most part, 1 disc per color per card. Also, you can't have the same value of disc on a card. The rulebook recommends that when people are bidding, they place their tokens on top of each other because the tokens are designed to be different sizes based on their value. And that helps you read it while you're resolving the compensation and whoever won the card during the auction phase. It would be illegal for me to place my token here because there's already a red. And it would also be illegal for me to place my token here because there's already a 1. But there are no tokens here, so that would be a legal move. I think red is going to place their 2 here because they want to be compensated 2 coal. Hopefully somebody will bid higher on that card so that they'll be able to get compensated. I think yellow is going to place their 1 disc on the same card because their capitalist says, whenever you get compensated, consider your disc being 1 higher. So they know for sure they'll be compensated for this because they lost technically, but they're going to get 4 coal out of that. Since we're playing a 2-player game, after the second player has made their selection, someone rolls the die. I rolled a 6. After you roll the die, you need to place the lowest value AI cube, or disc, excuse me, onto the card that corresponds with this number. As you can see, our 6th card already has a 1 on it, so the AI's disc won't fit because we have to use the lowest value available for them. So instead of re-rolling, I just try to place it on the next available card in the queue. That's a 1 in this situation, the first card, because there's no 7. It just goes back to 1. So I'll plop that down on the 1. You keep taking turns in player order like this, bidding on cards, until all of the discs are out, meaning all of the bids have been made. Once everybody has placed their bids and all of the discs are out, then from left to right, you will resolve all of the cards. You award compensation to all of the players who placed discs but didn't win, and then the card goes to the player who placed the highest disc. It's important to remember that if you win the card, you don't get compensated for it. I often use my lowest value discs to specifically bid just for compensation. Sometimes bidding for compensation is more valuable to you than actually winning the card. When you're resolving these cards, it's very important to go in left to right order because somebody might want to take the compensation they get from one card and use it to activate a compensation effect of another card, and that's totally legal, so always make sure you resolve in left to right order. We're playing a 2-player game here, so we also have the AI character. When the AI character wins a card, that card ends up being removed from the game, but players who bid on that card still receive compensation. A card might also be removed from the game if nobody bid on it at all. And by might, I mean it will be removed from the game if nobody bid on it at all. There are 2 types of effects that you might receive during compensation. The first type of effect is an extraction effect, and it just means that you take something from the supply and place it in your personal supply. The second type of effect is a processing effect, and that means you trade something from your personal supply to get something different from the bank, which may be loot, and it may be some other resource. Regardless of the type of effect that you're getting for compensation, the value on the disc that you played on that card determines how many times you can activate that effect. So if you played a 4 and you were receiving 1 iron, then you would receive 4 iron. And if you played a 4 and you had a processing effect that asked you to use 1 coal to turn it into an iron, then you could turn in 4 coal to receive 4 iron. But you could also just turn in 2 coal to receive 2 iron if you didn't have enough to activate it as many times as were available. Let's go ahead and resolve some cards. This first one it looks like I am the winner for, and yellow is going to be compensated. However, they don't have any oil barrels, so this is not going to get them any benefits. They go ahead and take their disc back. We put the AI character's disc back as well, and I take this card and place it in front of me. I usually just put it right to the right of my startup card. Remove the disc from it. You don't need that again until the next auction phase. So we move on to the next card. It looks like I also won this one. We'll just take off the AI's disc, and yellow receives this compensation effect, which is an extraction effect of 2 coal, and because of their capitalist, they're going to get it 4 times. If they did not have their capitalist, they would only get it 3 times. So they're going to get a total of 8 coal. They take their disc back, and I take this card. You can see here we have a situation where the AI character won this card, so we'll remove their disc and remove that card from the game. Nobody bid on this card, so we'll remove this card from the game as well. You can see here that yellow won this card, and I am going to receive a compensation effect. It's an extraction of 1 iron. I'll add that to my personal supply, take back my disc, and yellow will take their company card and place it next to their startup card. And then on the final card, it looks like the AI character won this one as well. However, I get to activate the compensation effect 2 times because I put a 2 on it, so I'll get 4 coal for that. And yellow will also be allowed to activate the compensation effect twice. They played a 1, but because of their capitalist, they get to activate it twice. We'll all take back our discs and remove that card from the game. Once all of the cards have been resolved from the auction phase, everyone's received their compensation and received the company cards that they won, you're ready for the production phase. The production phase is where players activate their company cards to receive loot and try to win the game. You can do the production phase simultaneously. There's no player interaction, and it does save a lot of time if you play like that. But there are some rules before we begin. You can only resolve each card 1 time per round. You have to resolve your production effects in order from top to bottom, and you have to completely resolve each line before moving on. If you're not able to completely resolve each line, then you have to skip it, or if you don't want to, then you skip it. But like I said, if you skip it, you can't go back, and you cannot go back to a previous card either. Also, if you haven't upgraded your card and you're still on the basic side of the card, this line that is not colored in yet is not available for you to use. So you can only activate the top effect of that card if you haven't upgraded it yet. There could be situations where you activate a card that hasn't been upgraded yet, and then later in that round, you upgrade it. You cannot then go back and activate the newly available upgrade ability. Personally, before I start doing anything, I like to kind of eyeball the cards that I have and put them in order that I want to activate everything in. It just helps me visualize everything and helps me remember what has been activated and what hasn't been activated. This actually seems like the only order that I can do anything in, so we'll go ahead and go for it. I almost always start with my startup card, especially in the beginning rounds, because I want to upgrade as much as I can before I move on to my other cards so I don't waste any of my abilities and miss out on some loot. There are 2 types of effects during the production phase, just like there's 2 types of effects during the auction phase. They're the same, extraction and processing, with the same concepts. Extraction means you take from the supply and put it to your personal supply, and processing means that you trade something from your personal supply to the main supply to get something in exchange, whether it be a different resource or loot. The first available production effect on my startup card is to take 1 upgrade token from the bank, which I'll do. I personally never skip extraction effects. They're free to you, and having extra resources never hurts you, even if you can't find use for them throughout the game. Actually, extra resources are a tiebreaker if there is a tie at the end of the game, so always take your extraction effects. Always. The next 2 production effects that are available are both processing effects. And remember, we cannot go back to this middle one if we skip down to this bottom one and do some upgrades and then come back here and then try to make some money. We have to do this changing in an oil barrel to make money before we trade in a upgrade token and a coal to do some upgrades, because that's the way the rules work. Unfortunately, I don't have any oil, so I can't do that anyways. But I would like to point out here that above the arrow, which indicates that this is a processing effect, just like the arrow indicated a processing effect during compensation, there is also a multiplier. So that means I can only take this effect once. As I said, I don't have the resources to activate this second effect, so I won't, but I definitely want to upgrade as many cards as I can. And I only have 1 upgrade token, so I better decide which one I want to do. Both of my upgrade effects are the same, so I'm just going to go ahead and upgrade this first available one. I turn in 1 upgrade token and 1 coal, and then per this symbol here, I flip this card over to its upgraded side. There's nothing else I can do on this card, so I'll kind of scooch it over here to remind myself that I've already activated that, and decide if this is still the best order for me to activate everything in, and I think it's still pretty good, so we'll pull this one over and go for it. Once again, you have to start top to bottom, and I think I only have 4 coal left, and I can activate this top effect to turn in 2 coal to get 2 coins. twice. That would take all of my coal. Or I could save some to try to get some iron. I can turn in 1 coal to get 1 iron 4 times. I think getting money is going to be more important for me because I can get iron on my next card, and I don't have anything to trade the iron in to get money in yet anyways. So I'm going to trade in all 4 of my coal, that's taking that action 2 times, to get 4 total dollars. And then I'm going to skip that bottom effect because I don't have anything to activate it with. And I'll move on to resolving my last company card. The only effect available to me on this one is an extraction effect of taking 1 iron, which I will do, and I'll add that to my personal supply. That's the end of the production phase for me, and once all other players are finished with their production phases, the round is over. To set up for the next round, you just pass the first player marker to the person on your left, and you move the round tracker down 1 space. The first player then cuts the deck and sets up for another auction phase by laying 6 cards face up. Once you've completed the production phase of the 4th round, then the player with the most money wins. If there's a tie, then the person with the most company cards wins. And if there's still a tie, then the player with the most resources wins. The rulebook provides some variance to provide some challenge to really experienced players, but other than that, that's everything you need to know to play the game of Furnace. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions about Furnace, or if there are any games you'd like to see me explain. I'll see you guys again soon.